Well, welcome friends. In my previous video, I shared that I was journaling through the book of Romans, going through a busy time in life. So I'm just writing it out using a different font every day, whatever seems to fit the scripture or my mood. So I left off with Romans 3 verses 5 through 8, and I had prepared a couple pages to keep moving on. I'm just going to show you the fonts, flip through this really quickly, and notice the backgrounds. I like to make them kind of prepare the page by painting, watercoloring it, and that's what I did here, just some green splashes. I'll do a demo at the end of just a few pages, very simply preparing the background. So I'm just going to share with you the different kinds of fonts that I used and hope it inspires you to give some of them a try. There's no trick for getting good at lettering. You just have to keep practicing. So that's what I'm doing here. Practice, practice. I love these colors that I used in the background. And one thing I can do in future journaling is look back at these pages that I've done and get an idea for a font that might fit the theme or the mood of a verse that I'm journaling in the future. But right now, we've sold our house, we've moved as I've journaled through these verses every day, and next week I'm going in for a hip replacement surgery. So it's been a busy season, and this has helped me kept me grounded in the Word of God. So I hope it's an idea for you. If you just need to really saturate in a verse or two, writing it out slowly and thinking about the words as you're trying to make them look kind of special really helps me consider them, contemplate them, and they come to mind during the day. So it's a good way to draw closer to God and remind us of His Word and help us love others better during the day. So that's what I found anyway. So just a variety of backgrounds and colors to go with every verse. Makes me happy to look at them. Love practicing the lettering and get better and better at them. I'm using most cases a Tombow calligraphy pen or brush pen. Or I also use a uniball, pen because they're waterproof. So I do, and they're a lot cheaper than, say, the Micron pens, but just this little deluxe micro uniball pen, and they're waterproof. So if I don't prepare the page first, in some of these cases I come back and prepare the page later, then I will use my uniball pen because it's waterproof and I can go right over it with the color later. Okay, that's where I am. I prepared this page for an upcoming journaling, and I don't know what the verse is going to say, so it's pretty wild and bold, but we'll see. And I actually, rather than watercolor, which I've done in most pages, this is with distress ink. So that's another fun medium. So here we go. I'm going to prepare another page for future journaling, and I want to protect the pages underneath from all my spillover. So I use just a regular old sheet of wax paper, and I do it like this. I like to have a Kleenex nearby to clean up my messes, because I make them frequently, and I hope you can see this. I'm going to kind of stand it up and let gravity help me actually create this page. I'm going to use, just make a nice mellow background, and I did this page next to it in yellows and greens and blues, so I think I'll stick with a yellow, and I've got this kind of gold there, so I'll add some yellow to it and just take advantage of that remaining paint. And I don't want it too dark. Usually, oops, got a little red in there, but that should be good enough. And I want to mix enough so that I can just finish this page in one fell swoop. Now with watercolor, you'll notice that it only goes where you invite it. So the dry pages, it's not going to go to the dry area until I invite it down by getting that area wet as well. And as I do, you can see the water is moving with it. It takes it into the new area. And it just creates this nice, even mix of paint. And the gravity helps pull it down as you wet the page below it. So I'll just do, now if I wanted to introduce another color, because I'm not using watercolor paper, I'm doing this in my journal, I could start going a little darker and maybe go up in the colors, and I don't have to worry about oversaturating it because I'm letting gravity pull it right down with me, and I can kind of have this gradient color to a darker orange as I get to the bottom, and it's still going to be light enough because it's yellows and orange for my lettering to show up well. So when that dries, it's just going to be a nice blended, smooth, because of the way we did it. Let the gravity come and just let it flow, didn't oversaturate anything. So with that, we'll let it dry for a minute and come back to it. Okay, I decided I'm going to take an old toothbrush and I'm going to get some more of that orange, kind of more solid. And I'm just going to get the toothbrush in it, saturated in it, and I'm just going to come back and do some sprays just for a little more interest and texture on it. And because the paper's still wet, you can see that in the wetter areas it's spreading. If I have some dry spots, those dots are going to stay pretty solid, but it just gives us a little variety here in our final color. And we'll let that dry now. Okay, it's good and dry, and you can just see a little bit of the texture or the drips, and it's all ready for painting. Next, there's another one I like. Sorry. Another idea that I like where you get to play with some blending of colors a little, and sharp edges and soft edges. So let's do this, and just gonna choose some colors and kind of wet my palette a little bit to wake them up, and maybe do, I kind of like to stick with the soft colors for a mellow background, but let's just go with a bunch of different ones and see how that turns out. So find my big brush again, and the bigger the brush the better, because then you're not going back for water and paint as frequently. And this time, rather than lifting my page and using the gravity's help, I'm going to just leave it flat, and I'm going to start with a blue and just kind of do some twirlies and uneven stripes here and there along the page, and then I'm going to go get another color. Let's go with some of that yellow we used, and you kind of have to be careful that you use colors that blend okay, because I'm going to let some areas touch the color above or below and other areas not, and they'll stay a little more straight edged or sharper edges, whereas once they touch, I've got a hair in there or a piece of my brush, they will blend and maybe create some other colors. Let's go with a green here. Not sure I'm using the most beautiful colors together, but it'll be a colorful page anyway, and you get the idea of kind of varying your touching, not touching, blending, and again, the paint is only going where I invited. Those areas where the paint is not touching the color above it or the moisture above it, they're not blending, they're not moving, they're staying in their little area. So now we've got some, let's go with a blue. I have some leftover blue on my palette, and I'm just going to activate it with some water and let it go. I like the way those two look together, those blues and greens. And then go with a little bit different, maybe mix up some green. And do some more. And pink. This is really bright, so I'm going to water it down, which watercolor, add a little water. You don't have to add white, just water it down and it'll thin out the hue of it, the color, the strength of the color. Okay, and then let's go for a little different yellow. And just let some bleed together and some not so much. And let's go for another blue. Sometimes they turn out a little muddy because the colors just don't, and I'm just doing random colors, so I'm not testing to see how they're going to look as they blend together yet. But I'm going to just put some dots of more color, and you can see because of the moisture, it just kind of makes it expand a little. And into the other color, let's go back with more of our yellow. Sometimes it's nice to start with a color that is like your base color and kind of play with that throughout, but you don't have to. Choose the colors you like. We can go with a little oranging it up a little. Okay, let's let that dry. Some puddles here and there, and since I don't really care about bold colors when I'm journaling and I want my verses to stand out more, I'm just going to dab up some of those chunks and it'll help it dry faster. Okay, that one's pretty dry, so I'm going to just let it dry a little more and decide if I want to do anything else to it. And in the meantime, come over here and try something different. And this time, I think I'll try to find pretty color to work with. Clear out some space here on my palette. And let's go with, you know, I love green, so this is kind of a mossy green, and we'll just do a background in greens. You could use any color you want, but I'm going to start out before I do my actual background. I've got a bunch of different lids I pulled from the kitchen, and just to make some designs here, kind of color it up a little, add some background to the backgrounds with different lids, and I'm going to do it all with my background color, so it's just kind of adds a little interest or texture to whatever I'm going to be working with. Somehow try to balance it. And different size lids, just for variety. Just kind of making a, I guess, almost a grungy background of some sort. And then maybe take my brush, get it good and saturated with the green, and try some splashes here and there too. Then we'll let that dry and go over it to kind of pull it all together. And we'll see the grunginess underneath, but kind of a cleaner palette on it. All right, let's let that dry. Okay, I gave that about maybe 5 minutes of drying, And now you can see especially the big splotches are still pretty wet, but I think it's safe to go over them, and some of them will blend out a bit. Some of them are going to dry, but one way or another, and then I can just decide how dark I want to go over them, how much I want them to show through. And some, because they're still wet, they're blending out a bit as I do my strokes, but still visible where we have some character in the background. Oops, didn't grab enough paint, so I'm just letting that gravity take it a little bit because I want more of a smoother finish to it when it's all done. There we go. That'll be another page to journal on. And lastly, while that's drying, I'm going to go back to my previous page there. And sometimes, like that's a lot of color, and it's got some white spaces in there. And sometimes I like to just, when I'm done, pull it all together with just a wash of some neutral or color that'll bring it together. And in this case, you kind of look at my colors, what color won't create just a muddy mess out of it. And I'm thinking if I go with a light yellow, it won't be too bad. And I'm going to go with this yellow ochre, which is more of an earthy yellow. And I'm just going to do a very light wash of it. And that'll fill in kind of some of the white areas. And kind of tone everything down and bring it together, I think. We'll see if that works. Sometimes you wish you would have just left it how it was, but I think this will be okay. And the main thing is the verse that I'm going to end up eventually putting over this when I get to this page. So there we go. Tones it down a little bit, all the different colors. So we'll let those 2 pages dry and wrap it up. So here are the pages all done. You can see the circles. I could have let that dry a little bit more to have more definitive spots and circles, but I did kind of paint over it while it was still wet and kind of subdued the whole thing. And then here's that page after putting the kind of yellow top coat on. Well, I don't know about you, but I always need some inspiration, some ideas, and then I love to go try them on my own. So hopefully those simple tips will help you get started journaling or creating some different backgrounds. Take care and God bless you.